What's up, Primates? I'm Shane the Skeptic, and as always, I thank you for tuning into my channel to watch my content. Today, I'm doing another open mic, so anybody who tunes in during the live stream anyway, shout outs to everybody that tunes in after the fact. You won't be able to tune in to the stream. You'll just listen. But for those of you who are live now, there's a StreamYard link right now, so if you click that link, you can hop in here. We could have a conversation. You know, I'm starting to do these open mics a little bit more. I think they might be a good idea for the channel. Some nights may be better than others, but you never know what's going to come up when you do these things. So anyway, you know, twice again, shout outs to the people that tune in later, and thrice again, shout outs to the people who are here for the live. What is going on today, everybody? I'll tell you what's going on today. Has everybody heard about the American soldier who decided to trespass in North Korea? He was participating in the Darwinian Olympics or something like that. This guy was not making the best decision. I mean, everybody that's in the military is saying that this was an absolutely terrible idea. Let's see, that in order for him to have crossed that border, he could not have done it accidentally. This is what is being said by people who are in the military who've been deployed in South Korea near the border, right? So people who know. All right. And I did order a new cord, but I didn't get it yet. My bad. So anyway, people who know what they're talking about will all tell you that he could not have accidentally crossed this border. So for him to have done so, I think he sealed his own fate. Whatever ends up happening to him, probably nothing good. He sealed his own fate. I'm not happy that is going to happen. I don't necessarily think he deserves it, but there are more people in the world that are deserving of sympathy, I think, than somebody who plays stupid games and wins stupid prizes. And to me, that's what I'm seeing happen. I just hope that this decision, this dumb decision, doesn't somehow spiral us into a world war because the Biden administration. Apologies. I hope this doesn't get us into a world war because the Biden administration wants to argue with North Korea about how we get him back, and maybe that doesn't go right. This is how global politics, you know, bad stuff could really. I'm sorry, very bad things can come from this. Is all I'm trying to say. This could stem to something really, really. Yeah, the reality is it's important yes, a life matters, but a life doesn't matter enough for us to start a world war over it. So I don't know, whatever happens. But again, everybody, StreamYard link is right there. So yeah, that's what it is. Today I want to see if I can find a news article about the North Korean thing, get some more details on here. Get some commentary from people who come in. But yeah, I'm gonna try to adjust the cord again after I get this going. But I'm gonna get my screen shared here in a second. Let me see. Well, let me see North Korea. I'll just type in North Korea. All right. Share my screen. And all right, cool. I got this going. View counts going up and down, but I started with people here. It hasn't been zero at any point, so I'm happy with it. So do we want to listen to CNN? I don't know. I mean, they'll be quicker about it here.
Three subjects. First, the U.S. soldier who crossed the border into North Korea. AP is reporting that he had been held in a South Korea prison and was supposed to fly to Fort Bliss, Texas to face disciplinary actions. How did he escape the airport, and is he a security risk?
So a couple of things, and I know that the Department of Defense, the Secretary more specifically, spoke to this moments ago. So I have a couple of things to share, and this is something that the Pentagon obviously has already shared. In the afternoon of July 18th, local time, a U.S. soldier on a private JSA orientation tour crossed willfully and without authorization the military demarcation line into the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. And we believe the soldier is currently in DPRK custody and are working with our North Korean counterparts to resolve this incident. DOD is in the process of notifying next of kin Until that is complete, they will not release identification of the soldier. The White House, the Department of Defense, the State Department, and also the UN are all working together to ascertain more information and resolve the situation. I don't have more to share beyond that. We are looking into this, trying to get more information. As I mentioned, the DOD has been in touch with their counterparts, as well as others who are certainly working on this together. Been in touch with the Korean People's Army, as the Department of Defense has done.
I mean, what better example of a fucking liability is this? I mean, I don't know if everybody else's mentality is just being angry at North Korea for detaining him. I'm angry at North Korea 24/7. Who gives? Let me think. I don't think about North Korea 24/7. You know what I mean? Like, I don't ever think anything good of North Korea, but I don't know, man. This is just like, I don't know. Does everybody think I'm an asshole and we should be sticking it to North Korea and telling them not to captivate any of our people? I mean, this guy crossed into their border. I don't know what to say other than that, man. I don't know. That's stressful. That is a stressful situation. Politics are always stressful, global politics especially, right? But we can always have fun with politics. Politics, we all know, can be very entertaining, but they're not supposed to be. That's kind of the issue. Is politics aren't meant to be entertaining, but they've turned into entertainment. And this is one of the reasons Donald Trump became so popular, right? I mean, he's entertaining and politics are boring. So people are like, oh, let's get this guy in here. Let's see. Could I get a comment or two from the live chat, though? Because I got people watching, but I don't see anybody in the live chat. Would like to say what's up to whoever's watching. You know, just shout out, holler at me. Just say, hey, yo, send me emoji. You don't even got to use words. Just say something, live chat. What's good? What's good? I'll try to get some. I want to show you guys, I brought up on this channel before. I'm going to share a different screen now. American politics out of context. And anything that you see that I'm about to show you, if you don't know the context for it, you should ask, does any context make this make any fucking sense? What we're seeing, or is it just strange as hell? Again, more people tuning in now. What's going on, everybody? Let's see. All right, we got. I don't know how to watch this whole thing. I'll start with Hillary Clinton. Okay.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
The most cringe politician. I'm going to tell you something right now about him. Everybody that cheered for what she just said, in my religion, they go to hell. I'm making up a religion, still working on it. If you cheered for that, you go to hell. If you act like that was not the most cringe fucking thing you've ever heard, I don't know what else to tell you. That's hell. That's hell for you. Infinite fire.
I believe these words came from the Pokemon movie.
The Pokemon movie.
The media pointed that out.
This is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real. The Green New Deal, surprise, serves China and China only.
And two things, if you
They don't
go
got
date
words.
one of my daughters,
Respect,
and
a healthy appreciation for the Second Amendment, sir.
But he's also
Oh
an
my
amazing
God.
dad. Ron loves playing with the kids.
Ron DeSantis.
He reads stories.
He's
Then
a
Mr.
family
Trump
guy.
said, "You're fired." I love that part.
He's teaching Madison to talk.
Make America great again.
You might not, I want to tell you this. I was in Israel and I was talking to some Israeli and Palestinian peacemakers. And I said, I'm telling you the truth. I said, well, you know, the Great Mother doesn't choose sides. According to Avatar, the Great Mother doesn't choose sides. She's there to protect balance.
Yes.
She doesn't pick a winner. She protects balance. And do you
Yes.
know what the Palestinian and the Israelis in the room, do you know their reaction?
What they say.
Uh,
They thought about it.
They
That's good.
nodded. And I
They-
think it was because some of them had seen Avatar.
Hillary,
Or
that is not investigated.
maybe they thought this is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in one of these meetings. But I don't know. Hey, this must be a Harvard graduate right here.
President Trump is investigated because they're scared that he's running and he will win again.
And today,
we greet the President of United Earth.
Okay, this is a movie clip. This doesn't belong here.
Madam President, welcome.
There's no video of President Trump sucking a ding dong. And so what if there was?
So what?
That's a lot better than World War III, Owen. I never sucked any ding dongs.
His face. Hold on. Look at the other guy's face.
A lot better than World War III, Owen.
Look at this. He's so uncomfortable. He is so uncomfortable with what Alex Jones just said. He has to act like that was a normal thing to have said. But then the best part.
I never sucked any ding dongs.
I never sucked any ding dongs. Now I realize, like, I think part of the reason some people watch InfoWars, and I don't know what percentage of their viewers believe their shit. Some people have to just be watching this because it's fucking funny, though. There's no way that's not the case. Like, if I've done it before, but I mean, there has to be a significantly, at least 10% of those viewers have to be watching him to fucking laugh at how crazy he is. Alex Jones, everybody. Damn.
Kansas doesn't have a brand. When you go there, okay, you're from Kansas.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Fucking Biden can't talk, man.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, will be to save Texas.
That the diversity of this community, as distinct as the Bogotas of the Bronx, as beautiful as the blossoms of Miami, and as unique as the breakfast tacos here in San Antonio, is your strength.
Politics, man.
Should someone have to have a government-issued license to drive a car?
The license to drive? You know, I'd like to see some competency exhibited by people before they drive.
Boo! Oh my God.
You can't fake it. You're either strong or you're not. And Jeff Sessions, he's not.
The difference with green eggs and ham is when Americans tried it, they discovered they did not like green eggs and ham, and they did not like Obamacare either.
Okay.
They did not like Obamacare in a box with a fox, in a house, or with a mouse.
How did we not elect Ted Cruz for president? Oh, man. Wow. First of all, when did Americans universally try green eggs and ham and agree that we didn't like it? Because I had green eggs and ham in elementary school. When we read green eggs and ham, we just put food coloring in the green eggs and ham, and I liked the green eggs and ham because you know what? Food coloring is just food coloring, and that's all it does. So, like, I don't know.
You killed Ted Cruz on the floor of the Senate, and the trial was in the Senate. Nobody can convict you.
$10,000? $10,000 bet?
I'm not in the betting business.
Oh,
but
okay.
When a woman is considered being in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
It depends. I mean, it's just like prime if you look it up.
What?
I would
It's just prime if you look at it. Prime for what? It's just prime. He said 20s, 30s, and 40s. Those are some pretty different ages. I'm pretty sure a 21-year-old and a 49-year-old are pretty fucking different. That was crazy. That was crazy.
Any gay to the Supreme Court or lesbian or bisexual or transgendered person to the Supreme Court.
Yes, yes. All rise for the Honorable Justice Chick with Dick.
But who ended the Holocaust? I mean, what country?
The Soviet Union, actually.
Okay, but
I mean, the Soviet Union did that.
No.
Palestinians don't get a right of return. And then once you've got those borders, I would build the world's highest wall, which they already have. They just built it in the wrong place. Okay, and you know what that wall did? It worked.
New generation of Democrats, Bill Clinton and Al Gore, and they don't think the way the old Democratic Party did. They've called for an end to welfare as we know it, so welfare can be a second chance, not a way of life. They've sent a strong signal to criminals by supporting the death penalty.
We don't always see eye to eye, do we, Newt?
No, but we do agree our country must take action to address climate change.
We need cleaner forms of energy, and we need them fast.
If enough of us demand action from our leaders, we can spark the innovation we need.
And, you know, that whole suddenly America's like the biggest oil producer and the biggest that was me, people. I just want you to. So.
Abi Kibar, Trump, Sarkar.
I remember that.
We love the Hindus. We love India.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
So again, thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice.
Thank you, Nazis.
Turn off that camera.
Okay.
I said turn it off. This is my city. When I say off, I mean off.
We got some pretty interesting stuff going on in American politics, and I know, yeah, I mean, we could say some of those were taken from like events that were meant to be comedy skits or whatever. No, the overwhelming majority of that was politicians being completely serious. Our politicians are a laughingstock to the entire world, and so as Americans, not that everyone listening is American, but as an American, I think this is what we should do. Let's laugh with the rest of the world at our politicians, because that's what the fuck they deserve. They deserve to be laughed at. They're already a mockery, so why not mock them some more? I don't know. That's how I feel about the whole thing. Very nihilistic about politics, because all you have is two terrible sides and one being worse. And it's the two-party system in the United States is a complete trap, and it completely manipulates the way that people in the United States think politically. I mean, they just everything is far right, far left, far right, far left, conservative, liberal. And it's not. They're just out of touch with reality. You know, they see everything as this dilemma that it isn't. That is America. But furthermore, it's just the politicians are fucking goofy. Ted Cruz, the green eggs and ham. Americans didn't like Obamacare on a box or with a fox. He was just being serious. I don't know. Reminder that the StreamYard link is in. I'm trying to get people in here. It's supposed to be an open mic. I've had open mics where I can get a few people. I can get a full panel going, and then sometimes I don't get any of you guys in here. But it's cool. If you're here, you're here. I'm thank you for viewing. But if I can get some people in here, that'd be good. Get some conversations going. Could I bring light to some specific world issues? Some that are related to Islam, but we could say the conversation's about Islam. We could make it about Islam. It doesn't have to be about Islam, but we can't have the conversation without talking about religion. And the topic that I have in mind that I'm referring to is child marriage. It's a human rights violation that continues in this world at such an alarmingly high rate that I just feel like because it's so disturbing, we don't take time to think about it. There are certain things, because you don't want to spend your life, preoccupied with things that you can't do anything about. I understand that. But at the same time, some problems can only have something done about them if people come to know what those problems are. And that's kind of the point of raising awareness. We hear raise awareness a lot, to the point where maybe it begins to sound a little bit cliche, but it's said a lot because it's an important thing to do. If there's a problem and you're trying to address it, you raise awareness of that problem. So I want to talk about, I have something specific in mind here. I'm going to share a screen. I'm going to share a paper. I know I mentioned this paper. I don't think let me see, window. I have this tab open. I'm going to try to move it to my other browser because maybe that'll work. I have the paper in like a PDF, and I don't know why I'm having difficulty sharing it. But I'm talking about child marriage in Bangladesh because I have this paper on it that I would like to. There we go. I know I've referred to this paper on the channel, but I don't think I've reviewed it. But I know, talking about issues related to Islam, we can't forget the fact that, Bangladesh is a Muslim majority country. So you're going to have Muslim normative principles amongst the population, right? And you have to consider, for example, like countries that are heavily influenced by Christianity, even the non-Christians in those countries do tend to carry over some Christian values. They're not Christians, but Christianity has kind of ingrained itself in the culture in which they live. So, for example, in Latin America is heavily influenced by Catholicism. Catholicism, very homophobic, right? So you are going to have high rates of homophobia in countries, in a lot of countries in Latin America, right? Like, if you travel to, and if somebody thinks I'm like making this up or something, if you go to Guatemala, you go to Colombia, like as someone who travels, I read the travel advisories, you know, and they are what they are, advisories. LGBT couples are recommended. Like, don't hold hands in public, maybe unless you're in maybe like a big city. Like in the city of Guatemala, you might be okay, but if you go out to the more rural areas and you're doing that, you're gonna, like, some people have never seen a gay couple holding hands, and their reaction to it might not be very good. And the kind of point that I'm making here is that even these people who have this kind of reaction to it might not themselves be religious, but they're heavily influenced by a culture that has been heavily influenced by a religion, which a big aspect of is homophobia, and therefore they're going to have that as well, right? And so this is when we talk about child marriage in Bangladesh, Bangladesh being a Muslim majority country, even people who aren't themselves Muslim, they live somewhere where the idea of a grown man marrying a little girl is going to be more of a normal thing to them. Now, the view varies from country to country, and even in countries where it's more common, you know, you do still have human rights activists, and credit where credit's due. Many of those human rights activists will themselves be Muslim too. So, you know, let's not disregard the existence of those people. But I don't think I'm going to read the entire paper because it's a long paper, but all of it is something to talk about. I can read it, give commentary on it. And again, I'm hoping that somebody tunes into the stream because it is open. Let me see. Oh, no, I'm having, I want to highlight on my, all right, I'm going to take a quick sip of my Gatorade, power ready to get started on this. All right, so my bad, everybody. I'm here. Okay. So the abstract is child marriage is still, let me see. I'm sharing the screen, right? Okay, cool. Child marriage is still a massive problem in many developing countries. The issue is more concentrated in countries of, let me see, zoom in, cool, of sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. Child marriage is a widespread violation of human rights. It is an impediment to social and economic development, and it is rooted in gender inequality. This paper, through literature review, attempts to assess the situation, consequences, comparative study on official and unofficial data, and the implementation process of child marriage reduction. This also suggests some steps to bring about significant changes in child marriage status. So, let's see. All right. Concept of child marriage. The idea of child marriage is very antique. From the very beginning of the human civilization, it began, and it is very common practice in almost every society around the world, but specifically, it is very severe in underdeveloped parts of the world. In ancient Rome, girls married above the age of 12 and boys above 14. In the Middle Ages, under English civil laws that were derived from Roman laws, marriages before the age of 16 were common. In Imperial China, child marriage was the norm. In 1929, Child Marriage Restraint Act, which allows girls for 18 and males for 21. But in 2017, act which permit child before the statutory age limit in some context, in some extent. I'm thinking that it's the author might not be a native English speaker, because some of what I'm reading looks like some errors that would be made by someone who speaks English as a second language. So I'm just going to read it, you know, with that in consideration. Child marriage can be defined as any marriage carried out below the age of 18 years before the girl is physically, physiologically, and psychologically ready to shoulder the responsibilities of marriage and childbearing. Bangladesh has one of the world's highest rates of early marriage. According to UNICEF, child marriage, defined as formal marriage or informal union before age of 18, is a reality for both boys and girls, although girls are disproportionately the most affected. Child marriage is widespread and can lead to a lifetime of disadvantage and deprivation. Child marriages were common throughout history for a variety of reasons, including poverty, insecurity, as well as for political and financial reasons. The countries with the highest observed rates of child marriage below the age of 18 are Niger, Chad, Mali, Bangladesh, Guinea, and the Central African Republic, with a rate of 60%. Niger, Chad, Bangladesh, Mali, and Ethiopia were the countries with child marriage rates greater than 20% below the age of 15, according to the 2003 through 2009 surveys. All right, now I'm going to go back to my StreamYard, check the chat. All right. No activity in the chat, but everybody's still in. Everybody's tuned in. So, all right, cool. I'm glad people didn't go, oh, a disturbing problem. I don't want to listen, tune out, because, you know, sometimes people are like that. Shout outs to everybody for listening to a serious issue. Child marriage, a global concern. Child marriage is generally defined as marriage of a child under the age of 18. UNICEF provides slightly more specificity, defining child marriage as a formal marriage or informal union before the age of 18 that occurs throughout the world. Child marriage is widespread practice globally, including in the wealthiest and most developed nations. It is most common, however, in sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and parts of Central America, frequently in locations afflicted by unremitting poverty and lacking in economic development. UNICEF reported in 2007 that more than 60 million girls worldwide, aged 20 to 24, married before their 18th birthday. In the developing world, 1 in 7 girls will marry before the age of 15, and sometimes brides are as young as 7 or 8. So think about that. In the developing world, 1 in 7 will marry before 15. That's crazy. You got to keep in mind that most of the time it's not someone their age. Yeah, that's crazy. All right, and here are some stats. Percentage of women aged 25 to 29 married before age. All right, so this old taking the survey that were married before 18 percentage. All right, so you got Guatemala, 39%. I mean, that's pretty high. I mean, if you consider like 39% of girls getting married that were quit or that were surveyed said it was before they were 18. That's crazy. Yeah, so I don't know. You guys can pause, look at that later, but do whatever you want to. But those stats are there. I'm just looking at all those. All right. Each day, an estimated 3,500 girls marry before reaching the age of 15, and 21,000 girls marry before the age of 18. Child marriage is one of the most destructive demonstrations of inequality and power imbalance between women and men. Initially, child marriage was a mechanism to protect girls from unwanted sexual advances and for safeguarding their economic well-being. Today, however, child marriage undercuts the very basis of what it was established to achieve and generally results in a life of sexual and economic servitude for the girl. The devaluation and suppression of women and their rights underpin the practice of child marriage and lead to the dire consequences for the child victims and their society. So you have to think when people make the defense of child marriage on the basis of it being common throughout history, the dynamic has shifted. Not that it was actually necessarily good back then, but initially child marriage, as it says here, I'm going to reread this part, right? Initially, child marriage was a mechanism to protect girls from unwanted sexual advances and for safeguarding their economic well-being. So, yeah, you think 1,000 years ago, you're in the Middle East and you know someone who's rich, you want your daughter to marry someone who's successful, because back then, you know, women were just like servers for their husbands, right? So you want her to have a husband who's rich, so they would marry their daughters off younger, and that makes more sense. So it was, and that's not me saying I agree with it, but I'm saying that was it was intended for that purpose. Today, however, as it states, child marriage undercuts the very basis of what it was established to achieve, and generally results in a life of sexual and economic servitude for the girl. And I think generally is an understatement, but yeah. The devaluation and suppression of women and their rights underpin the practice of child marriage and lead to dire consequences for the child victims and their society. I'm going to check the chat real quick. UK changed their laws from 16 to 18 this year on February 27th. I didn't know that. So it was 16 to get married before this year, huh? And this year in February they changed it. I didn't know that. Let me see here. Oh wait, hold up. I got somebody in. I didn't even notice. Amber A, how's it going?
Hey, howdy.
How I think I've seen you tuned in here for a minute. So you've been in the stream since close to when it started, I believe, right?
Yeah, it was. I didn't intend to join originally because I'm already late for bed and getting sleepy as hell. But yeah, the child marriage thing. It's a hell of a topic. Everybody overlooks the child marriage going on in the United States, and I think that's a big part of the reason why Americans don't want to look at it around the rest of the world, because they start pointing the finger, and all the other countries are going to start pointing the finger back at us. Because, you know, as a percentage of the population, it's not very much at all. But we're still talking, you know, 300,000 children getting married in the U.S., you know?
Right. And I think that when it comes to developed countries, we're at least one of the highest rates of child marriage in the United States. And so, right, there are certain issues that we can compare to, you know, we look at, like this is one of them, I think, is we look at the, you know, third world countries and we go, look how bad this issue is here. And sometimes we do tend to not take in mind there's a lot of the United States that has this issue too, right? And
oh yeah, it's ridiculously prevalent. There's
poverty.
It's child marriage is legal in between 41 and 46 states, depending on how you count, apparently. But it's still more than 40 states, and 6 of them have no minimum age at all.
I didn't even know that part. What I talked about in one of my streams, it was called 10 Reasons I'm Not Conservative. And one of them is this issue. All of the politicians in the United States that want to protect the right to marry children, they're on the conservative side. They're on the Republican side. All of them.
Yeah, because it's always for religious reasons, you know.
Exactly. And
yeah.
like the argument is, oh, if you make it illegal, you'll make these people criminals. And it's like, yeah, okay. So I'm saying I want to make, like, that's such a weird argument, but they make that argument. They're like, well, you're saying X should become a crime. These people do X. So if what you're saying happens, these people will become criminals. And I'm like, yeah, that's the point. It's a weird like thing to have to argue with anybody, right? And
yeah, well, it's not all that different from the gun law arguments, right? Yeah. Like they say, oh well, if you pass this regulation or that background check, then all you're going to do is make law-abiding people into criminals. Well, if they're breaking the fucking law, they're criminals.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm with that. What I'm not for is the illegalization of something that was legally obtained in circumstances where you're a criminal for owning it. If it was legally obtained, I think if you, I don't know, but then again, you do have systems and ways in which if something becomes outlawed, you could turn it in. So, it's not like you can say, if someone's a law-abiding citizen and the law is to turn in a specific gun, and that person would have to do so or move to somewhere where it's not banned. I don't know. There's a lot of nuance to gun laws, but I think most of the people who are like the gun nuts, they think of gun control and the only thing they think of is the idea that every single gun should be banned in every single circumstance. And I'm not saying that that's like a rare position or like you can't find people who think that, but I think at least in the United States, a lot of people who want gun control aren't even going that far about it. But
yeah, it's a complex issue, of course, but banning everything would just be really dumb because,
I'm with you.
Well, for one, there's people will still have their old guns. And then there's all kinds of crazy ways to get your hands on them, and it's not great.
Yeah, and I don't know, that's kind of the thing is like a law that could like work in one country won't necessarily work in another because our cultural dynamics are different. Our what we have is different. Our poverty rates are different. You know what I mean? And like the United States is, I feel like I remember I read something that was like, to Canada, the United States is probably like it's like a meth lab that lives in the apartment downstairs.
Yeah,
like that's pretty much what we're like to them. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. So, anyway, so how many states did you say it was in the U.S. that there was no age limit for marriage?
Let me see. It's 6 states as of June 29th.
At least 4 of them are in the South.
Let's see.
At least 4 of them are in the South. They've got to be.
Well, if you count California, it's Washington, California, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Michigan, and Mississippi.
Okay. Oklahoma, Mississippi don't surprise me. Michigan doesn't surprise me. California kind of does.
California is such a mixed bag. Like they elect people like Gavin Newsom, but then they do that ballot measure thing that they do and ban gay marriage.
Yeah, like I was talking to people about because I live in Austin, Texas, and here we have this weird thing that I've noticed where like, okay, in Austin, everybody who lives here is like progressive liberal, but our like representatives are conservative. And then when you go to places where like Williamson County, right, like which is a county just north of where I live, Williamson County, everybody who lives there is like a Confederate flag owning right winger, probably fucking listens to InfoWars, and then their representatives are Democrats. So
so weird.
So I just look at it and I'm like, what the fuck? You have literally a city where all the conservatives live and they have progressive politicians, and then where the fucking progressives live, we have the conservative one. Like I can't make sense of it. It's the weirdest thing here.
Sure. Who knows? At first, I was thinking like it's a gerrymandering thing to keep the progressive vote from counting as strongly in the urban areas.
Yeah,
but
progressives are also worse at voting. But
oh my goodness, yes, the apathy and the nihilism. It's gonna kill us.
I want to talk about my semi-nihilism when it comes to voting. I kind of feel like voting works like this. We all think about voting in the presidential election, and that's when we vote. And we go, the presidential election's coming up. I got to vote against Trump. And I voted against Trump both times. But the thing is, that election is the election that your vote counts the least in. I'm not saying it's nothing, but your elected officials are the ones that have a say, and all your vote really is an inference for them. But when it comes to your local elections, representatives, mayor, you know what I'm saying? Like when it comes to these elections, your vote really does fucking count. You know, Senate,
yeah,
like
it's a
those
much higher
elections,
proportion.
Your voice holds more weight in those elections. But those are the elections we don't fucking actually turn out for. And then that's the thing is like everybody knows who the president is. Not everybody knows who their mayor is. You know what I'm saying? So like there's that's kind of the way it works is yeah, I don't know. Look at it that way. You see. But
yeah, it's pretty trippy because people they prioritize things, and so they think, you know, I care about who the president is because I see it on the news all the time, so that affects my everyday life. I don't even know who the mayor is, so that doesn't affect my everyday life, when the actuality is the exact opposite. Like the mayor is deciding whether your street's going to get repaved this year or not, you know, whereas the president, very rare does anything the president do affect the actual citizens.
Right. Like fucking you got to look at Chicago's leadership. Ah, man. You know, you're just like, okay. Every Flint, Michigan, I mean, look at their water. I mean, yeah, I don't know. People, you're right. There's prioritization in politics. And people don't get certain things done. And you're right. Like when it comes to like whether or not the roads are getting paved, like that's your local politician. The fucking president isn't gonna have anything to do with, you know, the day-to-day stuff in your city that affects you. So that's the reality of it. But I guess it does affect some bigger issues. Like we were talking right here about child marriage, right? That's gonna be more impactful on a presidential sort of level than on a mayoral kind of level, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, the federal government could do something about it, but at the moment, the issue is a states level thing. That's why some states have banned it, and some states have different levels where, like, some states, the line is at 15 with parental consent, and in other states, there's just no age limit at all, which is, it just blows my mind that that's a thing in the 21st century in the United States, but here we are. So voting in your state level elections, it honestly, I don't think anybody really campaigns on that issue, but that's another thing. Beyond voting, people actually can get involved. I know everybody thinks that politicians just appear out of the ether, but that happens when a person decides that things matter and stands up and runs, you know?
Yeah, I just figured politicians were like robots. And I was like, they come from China. I'm just kidding. I don't think that. Because
Some of
I'm
them
on,
do seem kind of like androids, yeah.
yeah, because I'm on YouTube, I'm going to clarify that I'm not being serious because you know how the world is. Like, people could believe some shit, you know? And I mean, it's not like you couldn't make a politician robot. Wouldn't be difficult.
Biden 5000.
Yeah. I mean, you just get a little AI system, robot talks, make it mimic a politician. The easiest behavior to mimic because politicians act like fucking robots anyway. So you know what I mean? It's gonna be like, okay, this will work out.
Yeah, I mean, even the speech glitches kind of show up, you know? Like, if the Biden bot is running Chat GPT-2, then occasionally it's gonna just trail off into a weird sentence now and then.
Yeah, and would that seem out of character? No, we wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah.
So that's reality of it. So, all right, let's get back to this and continue to come. Oh man, I meant it. All right, cool. Get back to this because I want to keep this issue going. I'll read some more and then we'll both just continue to comment on it. So, okay. Child marriage in Bangladesh. Child marriage is one of the worst violations of a child rights that we can imagine. It specifically affects girls, robbing them of their childhood. Bangladesh has the fourth highest rate of child marriage in the world after the Central African Republic and Chad, according to the United Nations Children's Agency, UNICEF. Child marriage around the world is associated with many harmful consequences, including health dangers associated with early pregnancy, lower educational achievement. That's a big one.
Oh yeah.
For girls who may, who may, or a lower educational achievement for girls who may earlier. Is that what it says? Am I who may lack? I'm sorry. I lost the line. Who may lack of poor education. Like I said, I think this person's I think English is their second language, so I'm figuring it out as I read it too. And child marriage is born out of research finding that in Bangladesh, women with primary, secondary, and higher education compared to women with no formal education were respectively 24%, 72%, and 94% less likely to marry at a young age. So yeah, it's a pretty obvious case that someone's being taken advantage of when, to make something significantly more likely to be the case, someone is uneducated, right? It goes to show it's a way of deliberately keeping women weaker, because when you're less educated, you're less powerful, and it's one way to keep them as like servants, basically, right? If they start off being servants and taught that this is how they need to treat men while they're about 14 and they're married off, then they're more, at 25, 30, it might never even occur to them that there's like equality, acting like equal, like that might not even be a thought in their head, because it's been so implanted in them. They were raised to be wives, and they're like, I just finally grew up to be what I was always raised to be. And that's like, it becomes just the way of thinking. It's very manipulative, and that's why they don't want them getting educated, because what's education going to show them? I mean, you know what I mean? So,
yeah. And
what does education do for you? Give you opportunities. They don't want them having that. Like, women having opportunities? No. So like, yeah, so it makes sense that if they are trying to, if you're a population that's trying to oppress another population, it makes sense that you would want them to be uneducated, because education is power. And when you share education and you provide education, you empower people. That's the reality of it. So yeah. So here we are. Let's educate ourselves. Current law mandates a legal minimum age of marriage in Bangladesh of 18 for girls and 21 for boys.
Which is weird in and of itself.
Yeah. So like, we can stop on this entire conversation and go, wait, the current law is actually, if you like, considering this sentence right here, right? This means that in Bangladesh, they actually have stricter child marriage laws than the United States.
Yeah.
That's what this highlighted sentence means. Now, obviously, as we're about to read into, that's ignored, and I'm glad you brought up, it was 6 states, no minimum requirement, like no minimum age. So like, yeah, in the United States, we're even worse on our legislation about this.
Yeah. This was the Child Marriage Restraint Act of 2017, but the way it's worded is courts can allow child marriage in what's called special cases, but there's no definition of what a special case is. So it basically stops nothing as long as the judge rubber stamps it. And I don't even know if the judges are bribable. I know that's a big problem in India with criminal proceedings, where people with money just bribe the damn judges. But yeah, so it's basically, it's a paper band-aid. It stops nothing. It just looks like they're taking proactive action.
Right. Well, I see you say, but if you look at statistics, traditional marriage lasts longer than modern day marriage. Okay, that's because women couldn't leave because they were oppressed. Like we said, they didn't have education. We were just talking about them not having education. So if you say they were married longer, yeah, they were married longer because if they were getting the shit beat out of them every day, they couldn't leave those marriages. But today, you see women actually get jobs when they're educated, and so they could have, and also women could have bank accounts now. Women weren't, even in the United States, women weren't always allowed to have bank accounts. So when you look at a time frame and you say marriage lasted longer, that doesn't mean those marriages were better. It just meant women couldn't leave. So I don't really think that does anything for traditional, and especially by traditional, we're meaning men marrying children, basically. I don't think that that's a good argument for that type of marriage to continue. I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's something that I think people fail to take into consideration when they make that argument, and it is a common one.
Yeah, and there's so many dimensions of how trippy the situation is. Like Bangladesh, for example. As you mentioned, the percentage of girls married before they're 18 is just stupid high, but it's only 4% for boys under 18. So the young girls aren't getting married to boys their own age.
Right.
It's always someone much older.
Exactly. Yeah. And exactly. So it's that's the thing, is it is a case of manipulation, taking advantage of wrongdoing by harming somebody. And I think like one of the best ways I've heard it put was actually when Christopher Hitchens talked about religion being oppressive to women. He said, okay, well, of course that's going to prevent your society from flourishing. Like, that's half the population. And that's not exactly what he said. I'm putting in my own words, but he's like, yeah, if you think about it, and I'm not saying there's always, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It just that makes sense to me. To his point, I don't know.
Yeah, we see a similar thing in several other metrics, like urban areas, minority populations. It's the same problem. Education level is lower than it ought to be, and as a consequence, we see people who have raw natural talent that wither away in dead-end jobs because it's the best they can get under the circumstances they're forced to live because they're denied opportunity.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. This is like,
it's so fucking trippy to me that we have 8 billion people on the planet, give or take, and any of them could be the next Einstein or Edwin Hubble or Louis Pasteur. We probably have several geniuses who could shift the paradigm of one of our major fields of study right now, but they're stuck feeding hogs in a farm in the backwoods of Kentucky or something.
Exactly. So I feel like that's the best reason why, not the best reason, a good reason why. I mean, a good argument for the people who don't, I don't know, already think so. This is why people shouldn't be oppressed, is because when people are oppressed and prevented from their own flourishing, humanity is limited on its flourishing. To limit the flourishing of parts of humanity is to limit the flourishing of the whole of humanity, or not necessarily.
No, I think that makes sense. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not a necessary relationship, but it's a proportional thing. Like,
because if you look at parts, depending on if you're looking at people who've done criminal acts versus looking at people on the basis of non-mutable, like demographic identifiers, there's obviously a significant difference in those two things, right? So I want to make I don't know, clarity. That would be the difference there. But I'm going to say a quick what's up to everybody that's just tuning in. I see the view count going up, so thank you people for tuning in right now. We're addressing the issue of child marriage, reading an academic paper about it. This one specifically pertains to child marriage in Bangladesh, but Ember and I were having a conversation about child marriage in the United States. And one thing that we came to realize due to this highlighted sentence right here was that they actually have better legislation than we do in the United States, because we have 6 states that don't even have a minimum age on child marriage, as to where the law says in Bangladesh that girls need to be 18. Now, obviously, that doesn't do anything because they have, as it stated, I think it was the 4th highest, it said. Bangladesh has the 4th highest rate of child marriage in the world. So, anyway, it says, however, the law is frequently ignored and rarely enforced. The new draft legislation on child marriage under review by the Bangladesh government would introduce harsher punishment for forcing children into marriage by increasing the financial penalty and extending the maximum period of imprisonment from 2 months to 2 years. At the same time, the draft bill has a special provision stipulating that under special circumstances, marriage of 16-year-old girls to men above 21 years with permission of we were talking about this. With permission of parents or courts would not be considered as child marriage. And then they don't define special circumstances. However, present condition is better compared to last decades. So many attempts are taken care by the government as well as non-government organization, NGO. Also, social media and printing media plays a vital role to create a strong awareness among the mass population in the country, not only doing the above one, but also conducting the session at school and college level to know the bad effects of child marriage. Roundtable meeting among the village women are regularly conducted to let them know about the demerits of child marriage. Nowadays, the number of child marriage is decreasing due to the increasing of women education facilities. Yeah, we keep getting back to this.
Shock and surprise.
Surprise. As education in women increases, child marriage goes down. Like that doesn't, that kind of, that correlation, that correlation makes sense. That correlation might have some causation attached to it, I believe. The government is giving education allowance to the women at graduation level, which was previously at school level, and that is one of the major reasons to reduce the child marriage rate in Bangladesh now.
That sounds like, I'm sure there's a translation issue there, but it sounds like there's like some kind of financial benefit for going on to college instead of just completing high school, to translate it into American terms.
Yeah. No, I pick up the translation errors. Yep. I'm sorry, I got distracted by a comment real quick. Can you repeat what you said again?
Oh, that sentence about graduation allowance or something like that.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's some kind of financial benefit to going on to college instead of just completing high school. Like it sounds like the benefit used to be for, I mean, hell, maybe it was grade school because it's not clear which level it means. But yeah, I think the way it says education allowance, that sounds like a financial benefit. So they're trying to motivate people to do more schooling.
I interpreted it to mean that as well. And you know what? I'm glad you pointed that out, because allowance can mean literally allowing to do something. But I think what you're talking about is a financial benefit, is giving an education allowance to the women at graduation level.
Because that's not always a given. Like, Afghanistan under the Taliban, women weren't allowed past middle school.
Yeah. And if you read allowance in that context, you would really be unsure. That would probably just mean now they're allowed to do it, not that they're being given a financial benefit, as to where in this case, that's what it appears to mean.
Yeah, that's my speculation anyway.
Yeah.
I could be completely wrong. Yeah.
As a language lover, I like to talk about potential translations, different interpretations. I like to get into that sort of thing. So I'm glad you brought up that point. So, all right, let's see. After doing all those things that happens silently in many areas of our country, and most of the cases, ultimate victims are young girls. Recently, two most heart-beating incidents happened for child marriage. That came up. I'd say, that came up in news media and printing media. Firstly, a girl named Dipti Rani was married when she was 14 years old. She had has 2 children now. Both mother and babies are having different health problems. She wanted to continue her study, but was forced to marry. She said that her brothers did not want her to study because of her security in society. Another incident of Margia, a girl who is good at education and don't want to get marriage at early age. Her father wanted to marry. Her father wanted her to marry him without her consent. She is angry with her father, and at last she committed suicide. So somebody on the defense could say, you know, this is anecdotal arguing, and I think it is, but anecdotes aren't necessarily flawed. If they're being used to support something, and you have other, contributing arguments as well, then I don't think using anecdotal, especially if you're using more than one, is problematic epistemologically.
Yeah, you have to use them to exemplify rather than to be standalone examples. Like if you read off those two cases and then held out a stack of documents and said, I have 1,000 more stories just like that. Here they are, sourced for your consideration. Then it's not just an anecdote, it's an example.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So, let's see. Child marriage is not a present phenomenon. It was inception from the very beginning of the civilization. In earlier societies, people were scattered, lived, and they were severely faced the population problems. That's why they needed more people to survive. Those girls were much appreciated who were conceived more children, and the bitter truth was that it was very much indeed of that perspective. Almost all of the religions patronage the child marriage from the very holy perspective. But it is completely ridiculous child marriage in this 21st century. I think there would be a comment here, but it is completely ridiculous child marriage in this 21st century. So,
yeah, this translation is a little iffy.
Yeah, there's some I'm used to figuring out through translation errors, but it's always like when I'm reading something, I'm like, okay, let me see what they said and then what I think they meant. Child marriage has been a cause of much concern in Bangladesh. Bangladesh is one of the highest child marriage prone area in the world. The various government of Bangladesh has been taking multiple preventative steps since the very birth of Bangladesh, but nothing can be discouraged child marriage. Let's see, go down. The government is taking legal and non-legal. I wonder what that means.
Yeah.
What like pause. What is that? I gotta know.
Yeah, please explain. Like are they busting down people's doors and being
yeah.
Step away from the 3-year-old?
Yeah. Like this isn't legal, but whack. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. The government is taking legal and non-legal action against child marriage. But still now Bangladesh is one of the highest in world, the highest rates in Asia. Over half, 52% of Bangladeshi girls get married before 18, and almost 1/5 married off before 15. So yeah, that's still we talk about their laws and then what actually ends up being the case. I don't know. Wait, what the fuck? Women only wanted rights only once man created air conditioning. This sounds like it was written before air conditioning.
Yeah. Like
What?
I guess that's supposed to be a joke, but I mean the suffrage movement was the turn of the 20th century. Like that was a long time before AC units were a thing.
That was before air conditioning. That was
and frankly
pre-air conditioning women's rights.
Yeah, I mean,
that might be the first time those words have been said in that order. Pre-air conditioning women's rights.
Yeah, I mean, there was a suffrage movement around the Civil War too. Once we were expanding, there was a very unfortunate racist contingent following the end of slavery, the emancipation thing. White women were very big mad that black men suddenly had the right to vote and they didn't, and so shit got crazy for a little while.
Yeah, what's her name? Trying to think of this one particular feminist who talked about that quite a bit. Oh my, I don't know why. She's like an OG feminist. She's said quite a few racist things in her books. Oh my God. It's like almost the first person to come to mind when I think of feminists, and I can't think of the name right now. I don't know. I think that makes me a bad person, doesn't it?
No, you can't remember every historical person.
No, but it's one that I know though. Oh my God, that's bugging me. I'm gonna have to like Google something real quick to like figure this out. Hold on.
Oh yeah, I'm constantly Googling during live streams. Somebody will say something, and I'll be like, "Huh, I wonder what the info on that is."
Yeah, dude.
I know I've heard that before, like during the suffrage movement, with Susan B. Anthony and the others.
Susan B. Anthony. Susan B.
Oh,
Anthony.
was it her?
That's who I was thinking of. And the fact that when I Googled it, Beyonce came up before Susie B. Anthony tells me. I Googled famous feminists. I found Beyonce first. I found
yeah. I mean, she's more famous today.
Susan B. Anthony, yeah. No, she was in the category of women not happy about black men having the right to vote before white white women. So yeah, nope. But anyway, let me see. I'm so glad you said that. I just
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I'm now that we have a name, I'm actually getting some useful Google results. Apparently, preceding the Seneca Falls Convention, the big women's rights convention that really got things going, Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton focused on white women's suffrage over voting rights for all women. Like they wanted the vote, but they didn't want to allow black women the vote. And that's kind of shitty.
Yeah. No, that was. Yeah, that was the thing. Okay, so let's see. What else we got on here? Child Marriage Restraint Act 1929. Or let's see. In British era of Indian subcontinent, child marriage was worsening in situation. So very much initiative was taken by British Raj to minimize the child marriage. One of the biggest initiatives was Child Marriage Restraint Act in 1929. That act, quote, set the legal minimum age of marriage at 15 for girls and 18 for boys. This act defined a male child as 21 years, originally 18 or younger, a female child as 18 years, originally 14 or younger, and a minor as a child either sex 18 years or younger, originally 14. The punishment for a male between 18 and 21 years marrying a child became imprisonment of up to 15 days. Okay. What, 15 days? That's a pretty short term punishment from marrying a child.
Yeah, you get 2 weeks in the penalty box.
2 weeks and a day. 2 weeks and a day. You married a child. 2 weeks and a day. Wow. Okay. And a fine of 1,000 rupees or both. I can't say I know the equivalent of 1,000 rupees in that era to the US dollar today. I don't know. I don't know if that's like $300. I don't know. My bad. All right. Smoking. The punishment for anyone who performed or directed a child marriage ceremony became imprisonment of up to 3 months and a possible fine unless he could prove the marriage he performed was not a child marriage. Huh. wonder what that case would be like. I can prove she's not a child. Like what? Like was it a child marriage? I don't know. Was she a child or was she not a child? It sounds like that's kind of the only criteria there, right? I don't know.
Yeah, that's maybe that's a translation thing too. It seems like you know you'd get accused of officiating a child marriage, and you just like drag the couple into court and be like, look, they're fucking old.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm lost on that one.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
Although court cases can just be weird, where you're like, why are they arguing this? Like, I don't know. I've seen some arrests where like I understand due process and everything, but I'm like, what are you doing? There's so much evidence immediately. Just immediately it is over with. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, I don't know. The punishment for a parent or guardian of a child taking place in the marriage became imprisonment of up to 3 months or a possible fine. So they were fining the parents of the children being married off more than the person marrying the child. I guess that's an interesting philosophical question. Who's more morally responsible? Like who's more immoral, or who should be fined more? Like who should have a worse punishment legally? What do you think? The person marrying the child or the parent allowing it?
Shoot, that is a tough one. I mean, all other things being equal, it's the parent's duty to protect the child, whereas the person marrying them doesn't necessarily have their best interests at heart. But I guess it depends on a lot of different circumstances. Like if you're in one of those rare situations where the person actually is intending to provide protection, then you know it might be, but you don't have to get married to protect somebody. Like I don't know, it's one of those questions that you just want to throw up your hands and be like, neither. This is bullshit.
I don't know. Let's see. Wait, what? Unless I'd want a man medic. Well, everyone gets their preferences. I prefer women when I get like massages. So like I have a preference just like you have a preference. And that's cool. Everybody gets their preference. I guess. Wait, let me see. I meant to do something. Let me fix my StreamYard real quick. I meant to have it so it was like the nope. I don't know. Can I share the screen and have us? I don't know.
In theory,
it's just acting weird because normally when there we go. Okay, I don't know why it wasn't just doing that at first.
It didn't wanna.
At first it was, and then it wasn't. I don't know. It does what it wants to, but let me see. Okay. This is what I just already read. So let me see. Now the update to the 2017 one. So Bangladesh government enacted a new child marriage act, which is very similar to the old act, but in some instances it is silly different from old act. Translation error. Really, probably really different. Or slightly. Okay.
Yeah, maybe slightly different.
Slightly different. The vague new child marriage law in Bangladesh invokes the parental permission loophole setting no minimum age for marriage. An astounding turn of events that has human rights groups up in arms. Okay, wait.
Yeah, that's a good point, because what we read in the old act, assuming that's accurate, there weren't really exceptions. Like you had to be the age of the thing or deal with the penalty.
But this, when it says the permission loophole, I think that was the special. What was it? The special something. I don't remember the term they had.
Special cases kind of thing.
Special cases, I think. Yeah, that's what it was. The stunning turn of events that has human rights groups up in arms. In spite of protests over the law, the government's parliament has approved what is called the Child Marriage Restraint Act of 2017, which allows girls under 18 to marry with parental consent and a court. The law sets no minimum age for the parental consent clause. It merely states that a marriage may be granted for special cases that adhere to the greater good of the adolescent. One of the major concerns of the civil society and women's rights activists regarding this law is the provision that allows marriage under the statutory minimum age. As per Section 19 of the Act, a child marriage would not be considered an offense if it was for the interest of the underage girl. However, this has to be done in line with the directives of a court, with the consent of the parents, and following due procedure. Critics are concerned about the potential abuse of this provision. Yeah, fair enough, right? Here mention some loopholes of the new enacted law in the below discussion. Okay, so they have like a bullet point list, it looks like. Let me see here.
Yeah, fun stuff. This is the kind of bullshit that people 1,000 years from now are going to look at the way we look at slavery in the Bible today.
Yeah. Yeah. Nope. That's how progression works, I guess. You have at one point, it's like, all right, this is just what we talk about, and then in the future, you go, we were even discussing that back then, like.
Yep. There's going to be a future version of Dr. Josh running around going, no, people were actually fighting against this. They just got outvoted a lot.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. Anything. Who knows?
Yeah, assuming we're still around in 1,000 years.
Yeah. I guess because I remember one time what I heard, it was Bill Maher who said this. He was like, 20-year-olds have always been saying the world might not be here when I'm 50, but now they have a point. He was talking about climate change. It was like, yeah, like, dude, fucking mass extinction's going on. Another quote,
well,
I don't think it's literally, but like, yeah, it's hot outside, but it might be the coolest summer for the rest of your life. It's like,
That's true.
Oh,
that's pretty trippy too.
I hate that. Dude, it's been about 103 degrees here every day. I sleep during the day, so and I keep it about 70 to 73 degrees in my apartment. But man, fucking 103 degrees outside, like, it's terrible. Fuck that. Not about it.
Yeah, humans aren't built for that shit.
Nope, I'm not about it. Anyway, had to stop the bitch about that. Anyway, so in current Child Marriage Restraint Act encourages to child marriage because in Section 19 of that law has kept special provision which permit marriage before 18 for girls' best interest and some special circumstances. Okay, but then special circumstances isn't defined, so it's just anything that the judge lets slide, and the judge is going to let just about anything slide. The experts and social activists are concerned about this because there have a huge possibility to abuse the special circumstances. Another way of wording my same point.
Yep.
This new law moved backwards toward 100 years ago because in our present Child Marriage Restraint Act was promulgated. That could just be a word I don't know. Promulgated in 1929, where the minimum age was set for girls at 18 and boys for 21. But in 2017, almost 100 years after, we minimize our age limit, which means our society is more vulnerable for child marriage. 3, marriage doesn't protect adolescent girls because the Bangladesh government is concerned that pregnant adolescent girls, particularly in rural areas, would be ostracized by their communities if they could not marry. Allowing marriage in special cases, such as pregnancy, is their proposed solution. Oh my God. And they have this argument that in the United States is the same thing. It's like, oh, why should you be allowed to marry her? It's because I got her pregnant. So like a man, so you're allowed, so you think you should be able to get away with having sex with a child because you got the child that you had sex with pregnant. So you should be allowed to marry her instead. And that is the actual way of thinking that people have about this. So yeah, that's That we see in the United States as well. But marriage does not protect girls. Research consistently shows that child marriage goes hand in hand with dropping out of school, losing out on job opportunities, and experiencing domestic violence. The proposed law is at odds Bangladesh's bold and ambitious commitment to end child marriage. At the 2014 Girl Summit, Bangladesh committed to ending child marriage by 2041 and reducing the number of girls marrying between the ages of 15 and 18 by 1/3 by 2021.
Whoops.
The government, whoops, that didn't work. The government has since begun developing a national action plan to this end.
So that's infuriating. I mean, I get it, bureaucrats, committees, and endless meetings and all that shit. But fundamentally, all they'd have to do is pass a one-line piece of legislation saying, this is not legal. The amendment that ended slavery in the United States. It's like 2 sentences long. You know, that's all you got to do is just ban it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Legislation doesn't have to be incredibly descriptive to be effective. Like, for example, if there was a law, I don't know. I can't even. If it was killing, if you didn't have any other word, it's killing. Now, obviously, we have different laws for it. We have murder and manslaughter because they're different. But even so, it's like you don't have to have like murder by stabbing, murder by shooting, murder by. I mean, you can have more laws, different punishments, but I mean, it could literally be the law says don't murder, like, and if you do murder someone, you broke the law. You don't have to have paragraphs for it to like be effective. You're right. It's bizarre argumentation. Let me see here.
I imagine that's a political thing. Like they don't want to offend the holy people and step on their customs and shit.
Yeah, politics is a world of traditions of stupidity and bullshit. Let's see. Local government representatives, including Upazila Nirbahi officer. Sorry, what's that? Executive magistrate, Upazila women affairs official, Upazila social service officer. I don't know if it's Upazila. My apologies to however it's actually pronounced. Primary or secondary education officer in charge of the police station concerned can take necessary measures and legal actions to stop child marriage upon receiving written or verbal complaints. Let's see. The court can stop child marriage. The punishment for breaching the law is maximum 6 months imprisonment. Okay, maximum of 6 months? That's crazy. Like, that's a really short maximum. That's insane.
Yeah, and it could be less depending on how the judge is feeling, whether he likes you, whether he's had lunch, etc.
Oh yeah, no, that's the point. That's the maximum. So probably most people are getting 4. I mean, I can't say, it could be 2, but I don't know. But like maybe in some cases it's 2 weeks. Yeah, I don't know, and or not more than TK 10,000 fine or both. Again, I don't know how much money that is. It could be the equivalent to $100. It could be $500. It could be I don't know. I have no clue. Although I could stop to look that up. I mean, that is something I could pause to. I'm gonna have to Google that. Let me see. US dollar to Bangladesh taka. Okay, that's what it's called. All right, $1 is 108 Bangladesh taka. So let me see. What does the fine say? The fine is 10,000. So 10,000. Let me see how much that would be.
Yeah, it's like just shy of $100.
Yeah, it's $91.92. So
awesome.
So the fee can be up to $91.92. So yeah, maximum fee for marrying a child, not even $100. That is crazy.
Although it's worth noting, comparisons for economic spending power kind of stuff.
You're right about that because because
you take $100 American to Bangladesh, you're living large for a fucking month.
You're right about that. Yeah, that is something I failed to mention. I'm glad you brought that up because even if you go to when I went to Guatemala was the first time I left the country, and even so in Colombia, but like in Guatemala, food and drinks, oh my God, they're so cheap. Like if you live in the United States, like what you're used to paying if you go to a restaurant, if you're like, okay, I went to a pretty high-end restaurant in a nice area. I had the most expensive thing on the menu, and I also had 2 cocktails and a beer or whatever. And you're like it's the equivalent of like fucking $22. You're like, that's it? Like I had a lot, like that's it? Maybe less, maybe $16. I'm talking like a good meal, a few drinks. You're like, this is crazy. Yeah, you're getting these Colombia beer prices. Fucking crazy. Love it.
Oh yeah. Some of it you can get similar stuff. Maybe not that extreme with the value of money, but you don't even have to leave the borders of the United States. That stuff is expensive in the continental US, but when you start getting into the Pacific Islands, like the North Marianas or American Samoa or whatever, it's the same sort of economy. Like the average income for North Mariana, I believe, is something like $12,000 a year, and that's middle class there. So it'll take you 3 months to receive your Amazon packages, but what's poverty wages here makes you well off there, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. And that's one reason, like, people, a lot of people who work in New York City don't live there. Because if you consider what it costs to live in New York City, you realize, okay, well, if I get a job in that place, and I start making the kind of money that sustains living over there, but then I live over here, save a lot of money. And that's what a lot of people do when they live in, if you could find like a cheap, place to live in a more rural area or, I don't know, rural might not always be the right way, but sometimes rural. But you don't live near the big city, and you go to the big city to work because there's more money over there. So
yeah, you lose convenience, but you save a crap ton of cash because everybody wants the convenience and they're willing to pay for it.
Right.
But if you care about, the cost of an apartment in Manhattan, you can buy a house in Connecticut. So people want a house. They'll commute a little.
This is actually something I've been thinking about because I've been considering, because my girlfriend lives in Colombia, and it's not like I haven't thought about, do I want to move over there, right? And if I could make the wage that I currently make here in Austin, that makes me sustain this 1-bedroom apartment, right? If I could have this same income, which I couldn't because I work at a grocery store, so I couldn't work here and live there. But if I could have the same income and I could like do something online and I could live over there, I would be fucking so well off. And so, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I've kind of looked into that. But if you want to live in another country, you normally have to have a pretty good job for that because, like, if you're a grocery stocker, countries aren't going to be like, oh, we don't have this huge shortage of grocery stockers here, so like we don't really care that that's what you do. But if you're a doctor, you can move just about anywhere because people will be like, oh, you're a doctor? Fuck yeah, we could use you. Move here. Increase their rate of doctors. So, it's like, oh, you're exactly. So like that's just kind of how that works. So right now, I'm pretty sure if I applied for citizenship in Colombia, I would get denied. I don't know for a fact, but I'm pretty sure that there's no reason they would let me do that.
Yeah, I mean, who knows for sure, but my guess would be that they'd want you to like get a visa and stick around for a while and see what you can do, and then like evaluate. Plus, of course, they have their own citizenship test.
Yeah.
Like, have
And
you learned the laws and shit the same way we do?
exactly. They'll have naturalization and all that. But then this, depending on the country, yeah, sometimes being an English teacher can be a good go-to. And some countries, are going to have higher rates of people that speak English, so it might be a job that pays more or pays less because they could also have some of their own supply for that demand. But if they have a pretty high demand and not that much of a supply, then yeah, they might want to be bringing in more people from, more native English speakers. So they might, want to take you in. Like, for example, I don't know if it's the case in Brazil, but I know in Brazil, the rate of English speakers is like really high. I could be wrong about this, but I think that Brazil is the highest speaking English country in the what's it called, in South America. I'm could be wrong about that. But it's very high there, right? As to where in Guatemala, like not that many people speak English in Guatemala, and yeah, so I don't know how much that affects the situation, but some countries, if a lot of people there want to learn English, then yeah, teaching English could be a job opportunity that works, but they could have different requirements for you to be able to do so, right? Because I don't have anything more than a college. I'm sorry, I haven't been to college. I don't have anything more than a high school diploma. So for me to be able to teach, it depends on what's the country's criteria, because maybe my English isn't good enough to be an English teacher. It's my native language. Obviously, I speak it fluently, but how well can I explain the grammar to someone, right? Like,
yeah, you got to be able to communicate with the locals too. A friend of mine got a job in Japan as a English teacher. And I believe she got a bachelor's level degree in education, and then that was acceptable because enough people in Japan speak English. The fact that she didn't speak Japanese wasn't even a problem, although she has been learning it. She's been there almost 10 years now, and she's really good. But you don't even necessarily need to know the native language if there's a high enough rate of English speakers.
Yeah, and exactly. So if in Brazil, you could go there without knowing Portuguese. Like if you were going to be an English teacher, that kind of makes sense. But you do have to consider that the people taking your classes would have to have already been taking some English classes, right? To be able to take your class if you don't speak Portuguese. But yeah, so you're right about that. But
yeah, it'd definitely be a plus.
Yeah, but presumably, if you were to be an English teacher in Guatemala, you would have to be fluent in Spanish to be able to do that. Because not enough people there, speak just English.
Yeah, not even for teaching, just your own day-to-day life. Like you go to the grocery store and you want to know where the avocados are, you have to be able to ask for them.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't understand why people don't learn just the basics of a language if they travel, because like I don't know. I
think it's because we don't travel as much anymore as we did back in the day, like in the 1920s.
But I'm talking about people who do travel, though. Like there are a lot of people who travel, and you'll see it. Like Americans are notorious for it. Travel, and it's a lot of people travel without learning the language, but Americans have this expectation that people speak English, and it's like, dude, you're not somewhere where people speak English. So
yeah, well, part of it is because they spend a 2-week European vacation, so they'll spend 2 days in Italy and 4 days in Germany and stuff like that. They're not there long enough to speak the language.
Right.
Whereas in the old days, where you'd spend a month just in France, you're going to pick up some of the language anyway. That's why our rate of multilingualism has fallen off so much, with the exception of the Mexican Americans, who are pretty high rate of bilingualism.
Yeah, like if you, especially if you live in like Texas, if you live on like near the border, here, if I see somebody who's Latino, they probably speak Spanish. Sometimes they don't, but normally they do. But it's funny because I remember one time I ordered drinks in Spanish, and I was talking to people who didn't speak Spanish, and they went and got the cook from the back because they thought that I didn't speak English. And I was like, okay, that was pretty funny.
Hey, you never know.
But okay, let me see. Let me go back to this. Yeah, these punishments are pretty mild though.
I know.
Like, I'm just wow. Okay, so these would also be like, I don't know, in the 40s, $44 or so. I don't know. This would be like very little money over here. Yeah, I mean, like we talked about the differences, so I don't know.
Yeah, because like I don't know, if I were trying to bring a country into compliance, I might go with a prison penalty of like, if you marry somebody who's underage, you sit in jail until they turn 18. Like, if you marry a 7-year-old, you're waiting 11 years, buddy.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. Bare minimum 5 years. But I mean, really, I believe in doing much harsher punishment. But you know, if you have to like negotiate with these nothing punishments, you're like, hey, it was 5 years here. This is a 5-year sentence here.
Yeah, and on top of that, there's the economic disparity issue, right? Like that's a thing all over the world. As several people in the United States have mentioned, rich people will park in front of a fire hydrant, and the person they're with will be like, "You can't park here," and they say, "No, I can park here. I just have to pay a little extra for this parking spot." Because what's a prohibitive fine to a person of normal economic means is a pittance to a person.
Yeah. If a crime is, if the punishment for a crime is a fee, then it's only a crime for the poor.
Exactly.
Because rich people could just do it and go, okay, like you said, that's the perfect way of putting it. I just have to pay a little more for this parking space. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, let's see. The relationship between age at first marriage and education is the most powerful and consistent documented literature. Most of the studies recognize the importance of education to increase the female age at marriage. I'm going to skip to the data analysis just because I agree with what's being said right there, but we've kind of elaborated on that point plenty. We're in agreement here. There's a more than just correlation between women education and decrease in increase in women education, decrease in child marriage. Like that's more than just correlation.
Yeah.
Early marriage is a significant barrier to a girl's education. Oh, okay, here we go. Yep, that's what a lot of this is about. Health and employment. But the education and employment are related. So, I mean, yeah, it does make sense that we just have to keep getting back to it. Usually, child marriage restricts a young girl's access to education and consequently her employment opportunities. Additionally, child marriage increases the girl's vulnerability to health problems, as seen in the extremely high rates of maternal mortality in Bangladesh. There's a big point too. More maternal mortality because girls who are younger, while they're more fertile and that they're more likely to become pregnant, they're also more likely to have higher mortality rates in a maternal mortality rate. It's already said. I'm rewording something that's already been stated, but yeah, that's the point.
Yeah.
Early marriage also perpetrates gender inequity as young brides have no equality in their marriages. This paper will refer to some empirical data that has been collected from various sources. It must be noted that most of these data are latest collected directly and are from reliable sources that include, but are not limited to, government data, NGOs, and independent interviews, various volunteering organizations. So then, let me see here.
Yeah, another factor to consider there, because all these things, they all have multiple factors involved in them. Isn't just the fact that there's increased health risks for an immature person to try to bear a child. It's also how good is your local healthcare system, and Bangladesh has some issues there too.
You're right about that too, because there's going to be a higher maternal mortality rate in an area where there is a less sufficient healthcare system. So that makes sense that follows too. All right, now let's see here. Yeah, a lot of different variables that play into it. Bangladesh has the highest rate of under 16 marriage in South Asia, with about half of the nation's girls marrying before reaching their mid-teens. Also, statistics reported by the Bangladesh Demographic Health Survey established that the prevalence of child marriage in Bangladesh is among the highest globally, although the practice of child marriage in Bangladesh has been decreasing over the last 30 years. It continues to be a major problem. Under the Child Marriage Restraint Act, the minimum legal age for girls to marry is 18. However, 75% of women aged 20 through 49 were married before the age of 18, one of the highest rates in the world. So, all right, let me see.
That's an interesting fact, because that means that we're talking about people who got married before the current law brought in that loophole, making it legaler for underage people to get married.
That's a relevant point, because that law was, what was it, 2019, 2017?
Yeah, 2017.
2017. So yeah, that means the women that age married at, before they were 18. You're right, was married before that. So what is we talked about, we read earlier, government taking legal and non-legal measures. I got to know about those non-legal measures. I got to know about that.
Yeah, my best guess on that one is that they meant judicial and non-judicial measures. Like, they think legal like a lawyer.
Yeah.
So it could be court action and also like legislation and policy and police action.
I guess I see that, because I could say I'm doing legal and non-legal things to help homeless people. And I would say that if I was taking legal action or doing something politically, and also, just doing regular charity, feeding them. So that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, just my guess though. I could be entirely off base.
Yeah, it could be wrong, but it's the best, it's the most reasonable way to interpret it, I think. So that's what I'm saying. I think you're right about that. But let me see. Shout outs to the new people tuning in. I see, people tune out, people tune in. Shout outs to everybody, people who tune in after the fact when it's not live as well.
Hello, future people.
Hello, future people. Yeah. Do we exist, or are we different people when you listen to this? There's a conversation about the problem of identity for you right there.
Yeah. Archaeologists in the future will unearth the old YouTube servers and be like, what were people back then talking about?
Yeah. No, I think about this, how like nowadays, like historians have, ancient papers that have somehow been preserved well enough. We have ancient coins. We have, all that kind of stuff. But in the future, they'll be looking at MySpace and Facebook posts and YouTube videos, and like there will be like internet archaeologists, basically. Like there will be
there already are, like the Internet Archive, the Wayback Machine. That's actually a problem that historians going through school now to get their degrees are discussing. Is as more and more of our ongoing history goes digital, we're losing some of it. Like MySpace and the early years of Facebook, people are putting their pictures there and on Instagram and so forth instead of getting physical photo albums. So when a site like MySpace disappears, that history is just gone,
Yeah, there's all how many MySpace videos that we'll never see.
It's pretty trippy to think about. Like if that one of the apocalypse scenarios where terrorists set off EMPs all around the world and knock us back to the Stone Age, so much of our knowledge will just be inaccessible. Well, we have books that can get us back up to 1970s, 1990s technology,
Yeah.
but all of the current stuff is all PDFs and shit, you know?
Yeah, there ain't going to be no copies of this that we're reading.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? Internet will be wired in our brain in the future. What's crazy is that that's not just entirely false. You know what I mean? Like that sentence should just be false. But you know, people get the fucking what's it called? What's that? Elon Musk's working on it.
Oh, Neuralink.
Neuralink. Yeah. Yeah. Fuck that. People
I
get
don't know. I see pluses and minuses. On the minus side, it'd be attached to the internet and therefore vulnerable to hackers.
Yeah, fuck
But
that.
on the plus side, imagine if you could operate a robot body remotely, like you're in Austin, Texas, and you want to attend a meeting, a physical meeting in New York City. You can use your Neuralink to mentally take control of a robot in New York and go to the meeting.
Yeah.
Or sync your lights on for a more at-home kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you are like in the middle of a really important job interview or a meeting or something, and
your brain rings.
or a racist teenager gets a hold of you and starts trolling you. What are they going to do? I don't know.
Oh yeah. There've already been a couple of movies about that kind of thing, right? I think it was called Gamer or something, where prisoners are fitted with neural uplink chips, and teenagers basically treat them like PlayStation characters. You know, they control them through video game consoles, and these real people have to fight to the death, and they don't even have control over their own bodies because they're being run through that neural uplink thing. That's freaking terrifying.
Yeah, so I say fuck that. I am not doing it. I'm not having the potential for my brain to be hacked by teenagers, because
But on the other hand, what if you could store your memories in like a hard drive? Like you would never forget anything ever because you could just store it.
I would rather forget stuff sometimes than have the potential for, like, if I have to, either teenagers can't hack into my brain, but I'm going to forget stuff, or I'll never forget anything, but teenagers could hack into my brain, then I'm going with never forgetting stuff. And then also the teenagers are going to have my memories too. There's a whole conversation to be had there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, like we need a whole new paradigm in digital security before that's like even remotely viable. And then we've got quantum computers on the horizon, which could give us absolutely unbreakable encryption, or could make all encryption completely pointless. We don't know which.
Quantum, I understand everything quantum. No, whenever I hear quantum, I don't know what anything means. Every time, as soon as I hear quantum, I just go, I remember when I know what the double slit experiment is, but I remember years ago I was on a show called Truth Wanted, and with this guy, Objectively Dan, right? And
yeah,
I remember a caller, it was a call-in show, and somebody called in, and they said something about the double slit experiment. I was like, the what? And I didn't know what they were talking about. And Dan knew what they were talking about. And he was like, it's the double slit experiment. I was like, what's that? And he was like, oh, it's about quantum superpositions. And I remember I was like, okay. And I thought to myself, I don't know what that means. And then I just carried on as though I knew what anyone was talking about. And I had no idea. I didn't know a fucking thing. But I was like, dude, I'm not just gonna say while I'm fucking hosting a show, yeah, everything that everyone's talking about right now, I don't know any of it. But I'm like, quantum particles, double slits, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. But for me, the takeaway from it that matters about the double slit experiment is quantum particles act differently when being observed upon. To me, that is just the fuck. That's the fuck my head part. That's what I don't get.
Well, I have good news for you then, because that's not true.
It's
That's
not
no, it's a thing that a lot of woo-woo peddlers like to put forward to sound impressive, and occasionally a real scientist will paint the impression in order to wow you with how weird quantum physics is, but that's not actually what's happening. The particles cannot tell if they're being observed or not.
I'm not saying they can tell if they're being observed. I'm saying they act differently, act not as in, you know, like with consciousness, but just do differently when being observed. And I know you're right about the fact that a lot of like hippie woo-woo bullshit talk about, I mean, you know, the double slit experiment, quantum mechanics. And so that's kind of why this caller brought it up back then, right? Is because once you start talking about this kind of stuff, anybody who doesn't know anything about quantum physics, which is most of us, doesn't know how to refute anything that you're saying. So to them, like a fucking hippie woo woo bullshit artist and a scientist sound like the same thing.
Yeah, that's one of the big problems. Is a lot of people just throw the word quantum out and people's eyes glaze over.
Because, yeah,
But
there's
yeah,
nonsense and there's that which doesn't make sense to us.
Yeah, well, the phenomenon in the double slit experiment is it's actually fairly simple and straightforward once you get the excessive jargon out of the way. What's really happening is we want to measure what happens when you shoot photons. Like, are photons particles or are they waves? But we can't detect photons until they land on the screen at the end. So instead, we substitute electrons because they behave very similarly. They're both kind of particles and kind of waves, depending on the circumstance. And then we put a detector. It's not observation that's the problem, it's the detector, because how can you possibly detect an electron going by? You set up an electromagnetic field and it detects when the electron passes. But if you send an electromagnetic pulse through an electromagnetic field, the field is going to alter how the electron behaves. That's all that's happening.
That actually really does make sense. And like you said, once you get the difficult jargon out of the way, that's very easy to understand. Like what you just explained, I get that. I know fuck nothing about quantum physics, and I totally understood everything you just said. Yeah. Nope.
Yeah, it's just, it pisses me off when real scientists go with the hoodoo route to try to impress their crowds, because it's not anything particularly special at all. They just word it in such a way that it seems semi-mystical, and it just, I'm like, why are you doing that?
Or when genuine scientists do exactly that with energy. It's like, why are you pandering to this? You know what you're doing. Or like, I love when scientists make this point of they'll bring up the law of conservation of energy. Like, and there's energy in your brain. Guess what the law of conservation of energy says?
That's exactly why a lot of physicists avoid the use of the word energy. Like, it does have a valid scientific meaning, but you try not to use it because it's so very misunderstood.
Yeah, it's so misunderstood because it's been so tainted by the hippie woo-woo bullshit people.
Yep.
I need to hippie woo-woo bullshit people. That is a category of person.
Put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah. That is exactly it. And I'm not saying everyone who drinks kombucha is one of them, but I am saying most of them drink kombucha. and falsely believe that kombucha has more health benefits than it actually does. Because kombucha does have benefits because it has probiotics, but you know, like, there are people, the hippie woo-woo bullshit people, they think kombucha is like a magical thing.
It's one of those superfood thingies that it's a new one every year.
It's superfood. There we go. What's a superfood? Is it super? Is it so much higher in vitamins that it's super? Or is it just like other fruits and vegetables high in a specific vitamin? Because how is an orange not a superfood by definition? I mean, an orange has a pretty high
Right?
amount of vitamin C, doesn't it?
Oh
Vitamin C
yeah.
is a pretty crucial vitamin for your immune system. So
Oh, it's crucial for a lot of scurvy is no joke, yo.
yeah. So when we talk about superfoods, I mean, a fruit having vitamins in it isn't a fucking really impressive thing. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. Having vitamins isn't an impressive attribute of a fruit. If you're
Yeah,
telling
it's
me
kind of what they do.
it's what they do, exactly. So a superfood is, oh, this is a superfood. I feel like you're telling me this food has nutrients in it. I'm like, well, fuck, it's food. It should.
It's like that whole organic craze, right? Like all our food is organic. It's all carbon-based life.
Yeah. You know what? I've talked about this though. So I'm not one of those people that like eats organic everything. Like very little of what I eat will ever be organic. But I've always noticed, so with some fruits and some vegetables, I can't taste the difference in organic and non-organic. And then with some I can though. And so like with raspberries and bananas, those are actually the only two things. If I have a banana, right, I could tell you if this was an organic or not organic. And I don't mean GMO free, because a GMO free banana is like pretty much an edible full of seeds. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about organic versus non-organic, right? Like I taste the flavor difference. But with say apples, oranges, blackberries, cherry, like anything else, I can't tell the difference between organic, non-organic. And that's another one of those things. Like, yeah, there are some benefits to organic food, but then there's also, some toxic, like, chemicals or harmful chemicals and some fertilizers. But there's also all these exaggerated things. GMOs is a big one. People are like, oh, this is GMO free. It's like, yeah, well, the GMO one is better.
Yeah, like and I mean, hell, GMO itself is a buzzword. Like, what do you mean by genetically modified? Because every single thing we grow has been genetically modified by controlled breeding.
Yeah, corn didn't exist without people. We didn't have corn. Just like like the fucking, like Mayans and, I mean, not just the Mayans, but like all kinds of, different tribal people from all over the world. They were,
Corn is a sensitive little bitch. It took the Native Americans thousands of years to get corn to grow in fucking Iowa, because you could only move it just a little ways and then it wouldn't grow anymore. Like, a fraction of a degree of latitude. So you'd have to raise a generation of corn and then move it a little further north, and then raise another generation and then move a little further north. And so you creeping up all the way across Central America and North America just to get a strain that would take root in Iowa. It's a project of generations just to make that happen.
Corn is a sensitive little bitch. Ember 2023.
Hell yeah. Put that on a t-shirt too.
That's a t-shirt for you right there. Yeah. No, but yeah, when people talk about non-GMO, I always think like anybody right now, you know what? It's my stream. I should Google it myself, and I will. I'm gonna look up a picture of a non-GMO banana. Let me see, banana. A picture of one. Images.
Yeah, you don't want a non-GMO banana. Although that you mentioned you could taste a flavor difference with the organic is really interesting, because all our modern bananas are clones, right? They don't reproduce normally. Right. So the only difference between organic and non-organic is whether pesticides were used. And if that leaves a flavor difference, that's significant.
Yeah. And it's not that it's not that like non-organic bananas are bad at all. Like I'll still eat them. It's just I taste a richer flavor in bananas that are organic. And it's not just one brand, because if I'd only had one brand of organic, like every, different bananas from a different grow, they're going to be different, right? But I'm saying like I've seen this. I've tried. I've eaten my fair share of organic and non-organic bananas. And I'm telling you that bananas and raspberries are the only two things. But I'm telling you, with those two things, I can taste the fucking difference. And if someone were to like quiz me on the spot and be like, try this, tell me, and I were to assume they didn't drug it, and I were to eat it, I could fucking tell you. I know. So you guys, this is what they look like. Yeah. So let me try to. There we go. Here's a good picture. Yeah, see this small thing full of those seeds that you couldn't eat versus this, which you would want to eat. Oh, talk about fucking Ray Comfort. Yeah, man. Ray Comfort.
I know, we should give Ray the natural bananas and be like, here you go, Chief. See how it doesn't quite fit in the human palm?
Right.
See how it's such a pain in the ass to get the fruit around all the damn seeds?
Yeah, dude, fuck that GMO. Yeah, so there's when people say non-GMO, I'm like, well, I don't care. I don't care if it's GMO.
Yeah, I mean, again, people mean different things. Like sometimes they're talking about CRISPR gene editing kind of stuff. But as far as selective breeding goes, like I'm a huge fan of all the work our ancestors put in, like all our varieties of modern apples, the fact that we have lemons, broccoli, spinach, asparagus, potatoes, tomatoes, all of this shit. Our cattle, like fucking cows, like
And
beef
even,
cows
like,
and dairy
what
cows
we
aren't even the
have-
same thing anymore.
Yeah, and what we have today to smoke, for those of you who partake in the smoking of the herb, I'm like, if you were to go back in time to find the weed, the first marijuana plant to be smoked, it would be shit weed to you. If you are smoking what we have today, if you could go back in time and smoke non-GMO weed that wasn't touched by anybody, nobody ever crossbred a strain, nobody ever did anything to it, you would not like what you were smoking. Probably you wouldn't get high from it. Your tolerance is too high. You probably wouldn't get high from what you smoked.
Yeah.
So cheers to genetically modifying food and weed.
Yeah, and past humans getting all frisky with things, and that's another thing too. Like touching a little bit on the religion end with people denying evolution. Like everybody gets all bent out of shape over Darwin. The fact that we've been doing controlled breeding because we understood inheritable characteristics. That's literally what the agricultural revolution was. That happened 12,000 years ago. We may not have had the book about evolution or the name for it, but it's a thing we've been doing and the entire time we've been civilized.
You're right. And I don't disagree with you at all, but what some people who deny evolution would argue is some of them will say they accept macro but not micro evolution, right? Yeah,
Other way around, but yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah, they accept, yeah. So, and it's like, okay, so basically you understand the process to a small degree, but not to a large degree. That's all you're really saying there.
Yeah, like somebody, oh, I forget who it was. It was one of the hosts on one of the ACA shows. He phrased it quite succinctly. He said it's like believing that you can walk to the end of your driveway, but not to the end of your road.
Yeah, exactly. Like, well, like you should be able to have this concept of you've walked to the end of it, but no, no, exactly. That's a perfect analogy, and I'll say, yeah, the fucking evolution denial. That's another one of those things where it's like, imagine the information. There's so much information that we have that depends on our understanding of evolution. And I'm like, wow, just imagine if everyone listened to you when you say this isn't real. Or it's like people who are like, I have a cousin who he doesn't have his pilot's license yet. He's still working on getting it, but he's a pilot. He can fly a plane, right? Like everything you understand as a pilot, you hear flat earthers talk and you're just like, you really can think that? That's crazy.
You know, I actually, weirdly enough, this morning, I got asked to jump in on a debate on MDD against a couple of flat earthers. And I'm doing my prep and I'm like, I have to do a 6-minute intro. And so I did my thing and I still had like a minute and a half to fill. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to ask them why they believe what they believe. Like, don't give me the reasons that justify your belief. Why do you believe it in the first place? So I'm going to ask them. Hopefully I'll get an answer. That would be very interesting to me.
Like what caused them to believe it in the first place?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, no, dude, it's one of those, it's another one of those things where when you talk to people, you have to realize like there's a reason I don't really always assume something satire when other people do. It's because there are things that people actually believe that if you realize, when you talk to people in this world, people do genuinely believe a lot of really dumb shit. And so be skeptical of the proposition that a person is being satirical. Sometimes it's very obvious in something other than its absurdity. But if the only reason you think something is satirical is because it is absurd, I say question that. Try to find another reason to think it's satire because, yeah, people are ridiculous. I don't know. I don't know. There's flat earthers. We have the QAnon people in the United States. They're still going. They're still a thing. Still strong.
Yeah, there is not one thing that you think is a crazy thing for people to believe that somebody doesn't believe in.
Somebody won't. Exactly. That's where like I could come up with a bullshit, stupid conspiracy theory to be funny, but then I'm like, well, then be careful because like people could start to believe what you're making up as a joke. And then not only that, those people will insist that it's true even if you tell them otherwise. Even if you're the one that made it up. People are really stupid. And so yeah, like I know that we all know about the fact that Democrats are all lizard people, right?
Yes.
Like we all know that. But you know, we just have to pretend. I'm just kidding. I'm just playing. See, here's the thing. There's no way 0 people believe that. Like the number of people who believe that Democrats are lizard people is not 0.
Yeah.
And that's my point, is it should be. It should be 0. So like anything above 0 is way the fuck too much for a proposition like that.
I know. Well, I mean, there's weird statistics about a lot of different things. Like, for example, you have an above average number of arms.
Number of arms?
Yeah.
Oh, average, because you're right about that, because the average would have to include everybody, and there are people in the world with 1 arm, and there are people in the world with no arms. So the average of the people in the world would be like 1 point something.
Yep.
So I have an above average number of arms.
Weird, right?
Yeah, you're right about that. That is a great way to show how statistics kind of like, yeah, okay, cool. Well, I have 2 arms. I don't know. I feel bad about anybody that's watching with less than 2 arms. I don't mean to like brag. My bad. Well, somebody with 1.3 arms is watching. Like, fuck you.
Yeah, like that old oh shit, what the hell was it? The thing that said like the typical American family is a husband, wife, 2-car garage, and 2.3 children. I was always like, how the fuck do you have a 0.3 children?
How do you have 0.3 of a child? Oh,
yep.
You pull out 0.7 of the way. I don't know. Fucking I don't know.
The sperm was very deficient.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, one of those things to work through.
Yeah.
That's fucking that's fun. Were you here the other day when I live streamed and I watched Kenneth Copeland?
I don't think so.
Kenneth Copeland is a good example of kind of you know who Kenneth Copeland is, right?
Yeah, he's one of those send me your money preachers.
Yes, and he is the richest pastor in the United States. I kept pausing when he was doing and repeating that because that was like my whole point. Is this guy is absurd. He looks like a goblin and he is a crazy person. He seems like a cokehead. He seems like he's on cocaine. I don't know if he's on something, but he seemed like he's coked out. And he is he one of his posts that went viral, he was like COVID-19, I blow the wind of God on you.
Yeah. Was that the stream you did with Stephanie and Elliot and
No, that wasn't the same one. But that was also a good stream. But yeah, no, Kenneth Copeland, anyway, my point is if you watch you see somebody who's crazy as fuck and you'd think anyone who sees this person should immediately think this motherfucker's crazy and stupid and I'm never going to listen to this person talk again, except if I want to laugh at him. That's what everybody should think. But no, people are like, this is a man of God. I'm so happy to have a man like him talking that I could listen to him. And you're like,
I know, just identify yourself as Christian and you can say literally anything. And the worst people will do is ignore you. But other people will get behind you because you're their kind of crazy.
You're their kind of crazy. People are sitting in there with their kids. And I'm hearing the dumbest bullshit I've ever heard. And people are sitting in there with their kids listening to this. Yeah. This is a man of Jesus. And you're like, I don't know what religion. This is the point. Not just religion. Stupid bullshit that high numbers of people believe in. This is why I never care how many people believe something. It doesn't matter to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once upon a time, the consensus was that the earth was flat.
Right. It doesn't matter to me if everybody thinks something is true or if everybody thinks something is false. Zero weight, in my opinion. Now, when it comes to percentage of experts in their field, that's a different question. But when it comes to most people think this, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. Most people think a God exists. That's enough.
That's true. Yeah.
That's enough for me to go, I don't care what the average person thinks. Because the average person thinks that there's a man in the sky.
Yeah, magic powers could happen at any moment. Hell, I saw a comment on I can't remember who. I've been to so many different channels today because everybody comes out with new videos all the time. But TLDR, the rapture is happening today, apparently, July 19th.
Okay.
So, pack your bags and get ready for Jesus, I guess.
Yep. Prophecy. Let's see if it gets fulfilled. This time it's happening. Hey, Jesus is coming. Hey, if they say Jesus is coming today, then okay. Nobody's ever said like he was coming soon anytime before. So now that they are saying it, Jesus is coming any day now. Jesus is coming. Okay, well, let me know when he gets here.
Yeah, I asked a preacher about that. I used to drive a truck route through through a lot of interesting places like Palmyra, where the Mormons started out. But this church happened to be in Newark, New York, not to be confused with Newark, New Jersey, or being near New York City in any way, shape, or form. It's out. It's between Syracuse and Rochester. It's out in upstate. But he had a sign out front for years, a flashing, like one of those many little light bulb signs, and it said Jesus is coming soon. And it's been out there for years. So finally, one day I had a delivery across the street from the guy, and he happened to be there at the church. So I went over and I'm like, I got to ask you about your sign. You've been saying Jesus is coming soon for years. What the fuck does soon mean to you? And he's like, well, Jesus has been coming back any day now for 2,000 years. And I'm like, that's what I'm saying. Like, what does soon mean? And he's like, well, here's the thing. He's due. It's like the gambler who's lost all his money on the craps table.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, well, a 7 is due. It's like, that's not how that works, my guy. Another asteroid is due. Another ice age is due. Jesus, though, I'm pretty sure he went out for cigarettes and ain't coming back.
Lightning striking right here is due. I mean, fucking, it's due. What the fuck does that mean? Yeah, Jesus, you guys, Jesus is just like your dad who left and is never coming back, the imaginary version.
Yeah, like, was he ever even really there? And that's one of those weird things, because like a lot of Christians, not all Christians, but a lot of Christians, a surprisingly large number, say, well, the fact I exist means that I have a father. And they apply that in the religious sense, like the fact I exist means there must be a God. But like if your father left when you were a baby and you never met him, never knew him, then your mother could lie to you about who your father was, but that never crosses people's minds that maybe their parents lied to them about who God is, or even if there is a God, because they were lied to by their parents, and they were lied to by their parents.
Even if on the assumption that a God exists, you could be wrong about which God it is. We could obviously consider that point, right? Like that's one thing. Like as soon as I became aware of the fact that there were other religions, that was a crucial like step in my deconversion, because I realized, I go, well, if I'm wrong, I'm gonna go to their hell. Because I know if they're wrong, they're going to my hell, my version of hell, my belief in hell. Anyway, right? Like if I'm wrong, I'm going to their version of hell. That fucked with me. Or I'll get fucking reincarnated as something bad. I don't know, but I got to think about this. I got to figure this out. And then that was kind of like a step for me, as I went from trying to figure out which religion was right to realizing, wait, how do I know one of them is? And that was a life-changing question for me. And it was just a life-changing thing to ask myself, because I was thinking, which religion is the right one? And then it just finally occurred to me, oh, wait a minute. None of them have to be right.
Yeah, that's the tipping point for a lot of people. Once they really internalize, how do I know mine is the true one, when they accept the possibility that theirs could be false? And then they compare and they're like, these all could be false. I need better data than this bullshit.
Yeah, but I see this. Well, what's your hell? Back then, my hell, I would mean my concept of hell. I was Christian, so Christian hell. There's fire and brimstone, eternal suffering. Now, my hell, because I'm still coming up with my religion, and my hell, there's the first group of people that go there is everyone that laughed at Hillary Clinton's joke. So
like Dante in the Divine Comedy, right? He put people that pissed him off in his life in the hell that he depicted.
Yeah, and Hillary Clinton goes to there too. So you get to hang out with, and if you go to my hell, you hang out with Hillary Clinton. That's part of it. I'm not saying it's limited to that, but that's just the first part. That's the first part of my hell, dude. Just because I talk shit about every politician, you know, Hillary, where she gets number one in, is cringe. Like, to me, the whole, like, they have Pokemon Go, we need to have Pokemon Go to the polls. What I'm saying is everyone who laughed at that as like she's so smart, those people deserve to go to hell, my hell. And then there was the hot sauce moment. You guys remember the hot sauce thing?
It doesn't ring a bell for me.
Dude, she went on, was it Breakfast Club? Yeah. She's on a podcast and she knows she's on a podcast where there are a lot of black people and a lot of the viewers are black. And they asked her, what's something that you keep on you at all times? Because they were interviewing her. This was in 2016 when she was running for presidency. And when they asked her, what is something you keep on you at all times? She said, hot sauce. And it was just like, they immediately, very politely, and not directly, called her out for pandering to black people. But it was just the most cringe thing. Like, yeah, I don't know. Every politician has their thing. Hers was cringe. So I don't know. My
yeah, that's so pretty hard.
And you know who else goes? You know what's another part? My hell. You have to talk to the white evangelical, like the very charismatic ones. Like, you have to talk to them. They're in there with you. And in mostly my hell is just you have to like hang out with these people. There's not going to be fire. It's just going to, like,
it's the whole point of going to hell is to not have to deal with the fucking evangelicals.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. My hell, you have to deal with them. Yeah,
that's diabolical.
Yeah, my hell, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons,
everybody knocking on your door.
And it's just, you have to spend time with them, and you can't not do it. And you have to do like arts and crafts with them.
Well, you got to be careful with that, because there's some of us in the skeptic community who really enjoy it when the Jehovah's Witnesses drop by, so they can fuck with them for a couple hours.
Oh yeah, well, I've never done that because I'm above it, so I've never done it. I've actually never done that ever in my life.
I did it when I was a teenager. As an adult, though, I'm just like, I have a lot better shit to do with my time.
I'm not gonna lie. I love fucking with them a little bit. Sometimes I'll just very politely say Satan loves you, and when someone comes to your door to talk to you about Jesus, and you tell them that Satan loves them.
Yeah, like, why are you rejecting Satan?
Yeah. Yeah.
Satan went to hell for your sins.
Yeah, Christianity is a white man's religion. Yeah, Christianity also is something like, when Nietzsche talked about Christianity having slave morality, I agree with what he means. And I think that, like, Christianity is something that, like, it makes sense that, like, in enslaving people, right, you would teach them Christianity, because Christianity teaches you to be obedient to your slave master, right? So
yeah, Paul outright says slaves obey your masters.
That's Ephesians 6:5. If anybody wants to know where's that, Ephesians chapter 6 verse 5. Slaves, obey your earthly masters as you would obey Christ, specifically. Bada boom, bada bing. That's the verse. That's what it says. I didn't make it up. It's in there. And so, Christianity, it teaches you to turn the other cheek. Don't turn the other cheek. If you are struck, strike back. That's, like, for me, that is a good principle to have. If you are struck, strike back. Now,
yeah. People are all like, "Oh, I don't understand how the Roman Empire could be converted. The Christians must have done like such great miracles, and there was the healing during the plague. How Christians died a lot less during the plague because they cared for each other and shit." There's a whole bunch of bullshit. Ultimately, what it comes down to is Constantine realized that this system of thought teaches people to submit to authority and obey as their primary driver.
Right.
And he was like, oh, this is perfect for keeping people under my thumb as an imperial ruler.
Right. And then what you wanted, and then what the they who enslave want to do is create a culture of obedience and teach it to those that they enslave. And that is what Christianity is. And so when I, hear Christianity, in the words of, was it Karl Marx who said it first, as the opium of the oppressed, was it? Yeah.
Opium of the masses?
I thought opium of the oppressed.
Maybe. Well, if it's Marx, it'd have to be translated from German anyway. So there may be some issues there.
Yeah. But okay, whether it was a mistranslation, when I read opium of the oppressed, I thought, yeah, that's what it is. Like, because another thing is, and you'll hear Muslims talk about this a lot, is not that Christians don't, but Muslims, I've anecdotally hear them talk about this more. They'll talk about how people who are oppressed in this life are rewarded in the afterlife, and those who live luxuriously in this life will, suffer in the afterlife. And I think that's just a very comforting thing to believe if you're of the oppressed class. To think, okay, well, those who oppress me are going to be punished. And it's like, I hate to break it to you, that's not how it works. Like, and
it's half wishful thinking and half pulling people's teeth. Like, don't fight back against the rich people; they'll get theirs. It's coming.
Yeah, exactly. There's that. There's that too. Yeah. Yeah.
How about we do both? We seize the means of production today and go to paradise tomorrow. So I looked up that Marx quote, and it's religion is the opium of the people. It is the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of a heartless world, and the soul of our soulless conditions.
Okay, yeah, that I agree with. Like that, yeah, that not wrong.
Yeah, they used to know how to smith words together back in the day.
Yeah. There exist those wordsmiths. But I don't know, man. That's crazy. But yeah, no, we've gone on all kinds of great topics today.
Hell yeah, all over the place. That's my trademark.
Hell yeah. No, that's perfect. But anyway, I'm getting a little bit tired, so I'm probably gonna get some stuff done and then get to bed. But I'm thankful to you for coming through to the stream, for hopping into the open mic, so I had somebody to go back and forth with. And thanks for the conversation and the commentary.
Yeah, sure thing. I'll catch you another time.
All right, hell yeah. Thank you. And then to everybody that is watching, whether you be theist, atheist, religious, or secular, I wish nothing but health and happiness to you, everyone that you love. Except for the presuppositionalists. I hope you get like a flat tire on your way to work. I don't hope you die, but I hope you get like a flat tire or something. You know what I mean? But yeah, other than that, I'll look at the live chat one more time. All right, yeah, no, thanks to everyone for participating in the live chat, and again, those of you who watch later. So yeah, all right, have a good day, everybody.